Greater Albany Public School Board meeting. Okay, first thing on Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, might I move the flag?
Thank you. Okay, next up is approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next is comments from the public. Superintendent?
Mr. Chairman, we have one public commenter this week, makes two different comments. The first public comment expressed appreciation for approval of the strategic plan objectives and strategies, which occurred this spring. Encourages the director to inform their future decisions using the priorities. Look forward to hearing the goals that each board member has set. The second part of the comment is shared a concern about district grounds not being available for the public to use. Encourage the board to find a way to keep school grounds safe, clean, and open to the public. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Next on to E, Board Business, Hispanic Heritage Month. I'll read a proclamation. Proclamation recognizing Hispanic Heritage Month, Greater Albany Public Schools Board of Education, number 2022/23-2. Whereas Greater Albany Public Schools recognizes the Hispanic and Latino OX people contribute to our nation's success. They serve in the military and as educators, attend schools across America and strengthen the economy. And whereas the Latina OX heritage of the United States extends over 5 centuries, and whereas GAPS recognizes that Latinas, OSX, Spanish, Mexican, and indigenous peoples and cultures were established in this region before Oregon obtained statehood, and whereas the United States has a history of welcoming immigrants and the school board affirms that tradition, and whereas 23% of our students and 6% of our teachers identify Hispanic and Latino O/X, and whereas the school board is committed to increasing and creating pathways for Hispanic employees to have more equitable representation, and whereas the school board supports providing opportunities for Hispanic, Latina, OX, and immigrant students and families to partner and celebrate their cultures, and whereas our schools honor and preserve the linguistic and cultural assets of students through enrichment programs such as dual language, Latinos, UNIDO's AOS, and advanced placement courses that help the development and enrich the diverse backgrounds of our heritage, Spanish speakers, while exposing non-Spanish speakers to diverse, multilingual, and multicultural perspectives, and whereas our community is strengthened by the support and advocacy from organizations like the Lynn Benton Hispanic Advisory Committee and the City of Albany Human Relations Commission, and whereas the school board has affirmed its position of being a safe and welcoming school district and seeks to join with our community in embracing the legacy, talents, and contributions of all residents, and whereas the school board commits to creating successful education outcomes for every student, including our Hispanic and Latina OX students. Now, therefore, the Greater Albany Public Board of Directors proclaims September 15th to October 15th to be Hispanic Heritage Month and encourages all members of our community to join in celebration of our Hispanic, Latinx, and immigrant students. Adopted this 22nd day, August 2022, signed by myself and the superintendent. Okay, next up is board goals. I think the superintendent wants to talk a little bit to that.
Yeah, just So just to give an overview, and I want to apologize to all of you guys. Here we have what is almost certainly a topic for a work session that we would have worked it through. And here in year one, as we come together and begin to line up, that is not occurring in that order. What I would hope is that in the coming year, we will begin after winter break with real work, possibly a work session or two to begin to develop next year's goals. But this is happening pretty quickly. And so I want to address the idea that you guys are out of order or that I am out of order. In other words, I've already kind of built 3 priorities. And I don't mean that to be something that is somehow supplanting any board authority. So I apologize if we're a little out of order there. And I want to give you guys free scope to work on this. As you look at this, you will see many of the things that you guys have come up with have already been kind of shown to be in line with some of those goals, right? And the other thing, and this is really important, there are things that only one of you came up with. That does not mean that we are going to ignore them, right? Obviously, there are many things on this list that we cannot avoid and we need to work on. But just in terms of the big overarching goals for the district's work that will involve the most people, those are the 3 goals that we presented, right? And so I would just ask that you guys consider those goals, consider each of these, how we might be able to do them. And if you have questions about, hey, how would we do this? It doesn't seem to fit in, whatever. But I would turn it over for you guys with that context in the work. Does that make sense? You guys have any questions about that?
No, I mean, it makes sense that obviously the goals of the board would be shared by the district, right? So the idea that we each have making some input about goals and we'll talk about it and work our way through it and come up with some good goals is very important, and we want to be above board with that. At this point, I'll give board members opportunity to talk to their goals if they'd like. Eric, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Eric, if you might indulge me for just a minute. He called on you. Would
Michael,
you-
go ahead.
Eric,
Go ahead.
Michael,
Director.
Roger. It struck me on Friday. I really tossed this around over the weekend, and then again this afternoon when I looked at our 354-page packet and superintendent objective, board goals, board agreement with the superintendent agreement with the board. It's a little bit like we're in bureaucracy salad land. The structure for school districts are different and unique from anything I've experienced in the public sector. I view the submissions made by myself and other board members, and I would characterize them as areas of interest or items of interest. For me at least, I want to make sure that we leave here, and I am sure we will, and that anybody watching or observing know that we leave here, not just us, but the district and the community as a team with a goal, and that's to give kids the best and brightest opportunities for a great future. And so that's easy. That's a 100,000-foot thing to say, and there are details, thousands of details that probably get us to that place. But I for one, am happy to discuss our submissions and areas of interest, if you will, but I would not want to leave here with our board goals different than the superintendent's goals or the organization's goals. Thank you, Eric.
I'll open it up to board members if they'd like to speak to their particular goals and what they're looking to do in the next year.
Go ahead, gentlemen.
Michael, do you have anything you want to?
Well, yeah,
similarly, I had a hard time, looking for my notes here, I had a hard time, what is separating like a view, my overall view of what a school district should look like, and then getting it down to goals, but then not getting too specific within those goals. So, having said that, I think mine, I don't see, when I look at the whole boards, yeah, areas of interest, I see you can really quickly, I think we can group some of these and then deal with the outliers. The first thing I said, and I think we said it as a board, a focus, how you want to put it, a focus on getting kids caught up from a couple years of COVID, caught up academically. I said, what else did I say? My second one was equitable outcomes aligning with the strategic plan, which I think we should have, a couple of ours should be very close to what the district has decided. We shouldn't stray very far from the strategic plan, I don't think. And then my last one about the list of infrastructure came from some folks from the Bond Oversight Committee, kind of a feeling that we should always have, it doesn't have to be like it should be a specific list, kind of always on our radar of what are big ticket items we need to work on. And frankly, we've got the direction of that is the items left over from the 2017 bond kind of form the beginning of that. But, also the whole issue we ran into this year was Central Elementary. The issues about Central have been there for a long time, and they should have been on the forefront of previous boards, and it should have been in the forefront of our board. And I don't even want to go down this road, but I think if we peel back some other places, we could probably get another millions of dollars put on that list too. But the bond oversight really felt like we need to start having that as in front of us at all times. So that's where it comes from. And that, I can see that's be something that might get put off to another year. But anyway, I feel like I can work all mine into others, what others said, and leave it at that.
I'll go. So I'm gonna be very frank, and the board goals are pageantry for a lot of this. We don't look at them until it's time next year to make new goals. And we don't track them. But what we do a good job is watching the superintendent's goals, and that's number 3 on our job duties is superintendent evaluation. So we do a good job at that. So incorporating, and I think Superintendent Gardner's goals are good goals. I think there might need to be 1 or 2 more sub-bullets, but I think they're really good goals. I don't see why the board would have different goals than the superintendent. And if we're really gonna, we wanna see the fruit come through fruition, we should just have them be the same. Because I've watched us make these big goals and we don't visit them, we don't track them, there's no matrix. But Rob taught us over the last year how to look at the superintendent goals and, check off, hire a new superintendent, all these little things, put a budget together. So that was really good. And I just see there could be effort made with board goals, but I think working as a team with the superintendent and his administrators and us together would make the year a more successful year.
Roger, do you have anything you want to say? Or
Well, I'm happy to review my areas of interest if I can remember all of them tonight. Chris helped me. One was just to catch kids up. I share Michael's goal about that. I don't have my glasses, I can't read it. The second was to be financially on very solid footing and to know where we're at and why we're there. We've gone through, I've only been here a year, but I think in the last 3 years, all public entities have gone through quite a challenging time, and that had expenditures and things that we never imagined seeing, and then spending money doing those. Many of those were one-time funds. And I think with the school district, maybe it was a little bit different in that the tax on sales above $1 million that the legislature plugged in came about the same time, and it didn't roll out as great as anybody thought it would because the economy was shut down for 7 months out of 1 year at least. And so where we're at and what's the smartest use of resources going forward, I think is very, very important, and that we get that right now. So, because if you don't, you're fighting an uphill battle or future boards are fighting an uphill battle for a long, long time. So that was second. The third, and it's absolutely just an area of individual interest, field turf for baseball and softball facilities. Last spring, 2 schools in our district played for the state title in baseball. They were Crescent Valley and they were Lebanon, both schools that had field turf and could practice. Baseball is one of those sports that, well, it's the sport that weather can rain you out. Football doesn't rain you out. Hopefully basketball doesn't rain you out. All the other sports you generally do, no matter the weather. So just something that I'm looking for ways to help work with people and get that done across the board. And then the other thing is central. I agree. It's been a problem for a while. We've got, I think, a plan to solve it, and things move around, if you will. But I also think that it's important, and I think we're going to find out later, that the schedule is next summer, and that the district, we should take an interest in making sure that there's the best learning opportunity for those kids possible, considering the circumstances. I know last fall when Pete and I went, you had a number of different very noisy pieces of equipment in every room. I think there were 2. One was an air scrubber, and I think we need to get somebody like now, this week, next week, to analyze and evaluate what's required and what we really need. If the window's half open, do you need the scrubber? I wish that work and project could be done now. It's not, and that's an immediate thing. And again, it's a goal for me, an area of interest, and I don't think it needs to supersede or necessarily be added to the way Superintendent Gardner is structured things to this point. I would be supported at the end of all of this in adopting the superintendent's goals and strategic plan as ours as well.
Brad, anything you want to share?
Well, I just had 2 basic areas of interest. One was, behavior, trying to get better behavior in the classrooms, and academics. Those are the 2 things, and they kind of go hand in hand, really. With if the behavior improves, then the learning can improve. And because we've got some ground to make up, and we've got to get our kids ready to compete in the world.
Okay, I agree that, we need to have the board and superintendent goals be the same. We'll keep working on this. I think one of the things for me, obviously we all have talked about how academics have to be, top. We have to catch our kids back up. That's really important. They're behind. We need to get them caught up. Another thing that's going on in education in general, not just here, but throughout the country, there's a real lack of teachers and staff to man the schools, and that's a challenge. Obviously you have to have your professionals in place to get people trained, to get people academically ready to move on with their lives, and be adults. So that's really important. So I'll just read mine real quick. I think achieving equitable outcomes through testing and directing resources towards student youth success. I think we need to have testing. I think we need to figure out where our kids are and direct those resources to where they need to be. One of the things that Andy talks about that I think is really important and great, hey, we're going to have goals and we're going to measure those goals. We're going to grade ourselves. Let's see what's going on. Roger talks about we're not happy with where Central is. We're not. We want to move forward. We want to get those things done. Unfortunately, in this environment, even when you say, hey, let's do this, it takes time. And so what we need to do and what you should expect us to do is keep pushing to get that done as soon as we can. Preparing student youth to achieve future success by giving them the tools, both academic and life skills, that are needed for success. I think one of the things that Brad and all of us have kind of hit on, and if you talk to teachers and administrators, they'd hit on it too, is we need our kids to come out of this COVID doldrums and kind of behave like good kids. And, it's hard to have a good classroom if half your kids are on their phone, right? So we need to get them taught. Provide an environment where student learning thrives and our staff can achieve fulfilling careers. I think that's real important. One thing that I think we should be real proud of here at the district is through this whole COVID thing, a lot of districts have actually decreased quite a bit in the amount of students they have in their districts. We've done much less decrease than most districts, and I think that's important. I think that says that the community, although isn't always happy, they're happier with us than in some other districts. I think this is real important, both for us to have good results with our students and youth, and also it's just being honest about what we need to achieve that. So my last is be a district where families want their youth to be in school and where staff and prospective employees desire to work. We want to provide an environment for our administrators, our teachers, our custodians, our bus drivers, where they want to be. They want to be here instead of Corvallis or Lebanon, and thereby, we're not hurting as bad in staffing as we could be other districts. So I agree 100% that we all need to share the same goals. I think we need to measure them and report back, hey, here's where we are on these things. I think that's important. Okay, board working agreements.
Superintendent and evaluation process first.
Yeah.
E3.
So this is the I skipped that. So superintendent evaluation process. This is something that we have talked about as a group. We've talked about with our new superintendent. There's some laws about how we evaluate our superintendent. Anyone that's done evaluations of people realizes there's numerous ways to do evaluations. We have a system in place that it seems like our superintendent's pleased with. It meets the letter of the law. And I think everyone up here who's going to be doing the evaluating is happy with. Superintendent Gardner, anything you'd like to say about it?
I might have clicked on the wrong thing. I see my old goals from last time. Second. So one of the things about evaluation that is important to me. Oh, I'm on it. If you guys take a look through here, there is more here, I think, than just simply whether or not I do the 3 broad goals, right? There's a lot of different things that you guys will be asked to make comment on. Generally, and in relation to these, around the first of the year, I will send out progress on the goals, right? Then we'll see that. And at that point, we'll begin to work towards next year's goals as well. And there may be 1 or 2 on here that this is going to take a little bit longer. This is going to be a challenge, but there'll be a real interactive process with you guys where we're largely focused on the general direction of the district. Here's the only thing I would ask, that when you guys are scoring, right, you guys could score on this and come up with a 5.2 or a 5.1 in another area. It could generally show me where there's an area that you guys all are in agreement that I could do better compared to the others. But what I really would ask that you do is that you write out why you did it, right? So we can look and go, okay, it's not just that I scored low in a given area, but why you guys perceive that is low. And then that we come together and then talk about that, right? So you guys share your opinions together into the document, and then we have a discussion about what we can do to improve that, so that it becomes a learning experience for me, and that we are constantly in a growing mode, learning and growing and adapting. And that's the most important thing here, is that this document is like, one time we got in a big argument about whether it's a 6-point scale or a 4-point scale. I just want you to tell me why you scored the way you scored me, so that we can have a discussion about how I can do better, right? But I'm very comfortable about this, and I always say this, if we lose traction, if there's just a real miss, then we can discuss that in those conversations too. And that's perfect, right? That's the way I would want that.
Okay, E4, next up.
Do we need to
Before-
adopt that?
Go ahead. Oh, we have to adopt it, my fault.
Well, so can I ask a question, a process question? Given the complexity of being a superintendent of a school district and being new and everything going on, and understanding public meetings laws, would it be helpful if we had a subcommittee that met with you once a month for an hour or whatever it took to just touch a base, so we're not into January or February and
It's not gonna happen.
somebody's surprised? It's just not gonna happen?
So we discussed reviving actually just 1-hour meetings with you guys at intervals, just so that there's more touching base. But if you want to do that with a group, to be more efficient.
Well,
we
you
can
could do it
work
with
on that.
2. You couldn't do it with 3.
Yeah, well, or individually. You know, I would take any suggestion there, but I would want to increase contact. I think Rob met individually with all of you monthly.
Yes.
You guys in favor of that?
I would defer to you. I mean, as is, I know I see you a couple times a week, so I would tell you what would help you more.
So I probably don't need to see you anymore, Pete. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But if we could have meetings with those that aren't officers right now, once a month, we can work on that. And that way, there wouldn't be any gliding out of track.
I think that makes real sense.
I can tell you, this looks good. We've done a couple of these. This looks like a really good example. I like it.
Good.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Move approval?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we're moving on to board working agreements. These are the agreements between the board members themselves, the superintendent, and the board and the superintendent. I think here we're just reviewing these. Next time we'll approve them, is that correct? So everyone, I ask you to give it a look, and if you have something on there that you don't like from last year, that we share it before we look at approving them next board meeting. School will be in session. So that's kind of exciting for a school board, right? School's gonna be in session next time. Okay. We're down to F, and superintendent report.
So I'll start just with some informal stuff, and then we'll go forward. First of all, I want to give Heather credit today. Her and Kalia worked to bring in 64 new teachers today. That was nice. And I know that it took a lot of work to plan that and to make that go well, and it looked like it was a great day out there. So kudos for that. A quick announcement here, working with Heather and with Rachel, our nurse, we have begun to accept vaccination exceptions for volunteers and for staff. And we are required still by law to have one thing that we do that works on that. And we believe by the letter of the law that we may require an attestation from staff that are not vaccinated but exempt, so they are here through an exception. But what we are going to do is have the CDC's list of symptoms, and people will attest that they do not have 1 or 2 symptoms. They will voluntarily submit to testing if they do have symptoms, or they will test at home. But we are going to move from weekly testing to just an attestation, and I think that, and Rachel and Heather both see this as a tremendous efficiency. And this, I think, will help us be more accessible and hopefully raise awareness to people when they check in and sign in as volunteers, for example, that they need to look at that and just be aware that they should not come on days when they have those symptoms. Heather, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, that's basically it. Part of the attestation is an understanding that the supervisor, if a supervisor is noticing several symptoms may check in and just say, have you had a chance? You know, we've got a secure area. The goal is just to keep everybody safe, but, and stop stop a spread if it's something happening. Keep kids in school means we want to keep staff in school. And to keep staff in school, we want all of us, every individual, to really self-monitor symptoms that they may be having. And so, yeah.
Thank you. And then finally, we have done lockdown drills in this district. I have asked that the first one is complete by November 1st this year. We began to set up a meeting with the city police to discuss that, and we ended up really with a really good turnout of a lot of our emergency services, including the hospital. And we began to identify a large number of trainings and processes that we're going to need to build. And so working with Lynn County, the Albany Hospital, the Albany Fire Department, and a broad number of people, we are going to be working throughout the year to really begin to clarify our emergency processes throughout the district. And I know that this work was begun just prior to COVID. There was a committee and had begun the work, and we're going to be picking that up and moving that work forward through the course of this year for sure, and probably beyond, to begin to once again go back and look at each school site and what the plan is there, to look at our current protocols for, as an example, I know we've had comments from several members of the community. I have for sure, I'm sure you guys have, that some of the doors were open in the spring. You know, we weren't quite hard shell in our schools. Found out today that some of those actually had those little rubber, what do they call them?
Lock block.
The lock blocks, because of allowing kids to enter the building so that the cohorting was preserved during COVID. So there's just a lot of work to do for us to get ourselves back to par there. And I was really impressed and pleased with the sheriff's department, the police, the fire, the hospital, everybody else who was willing to come. And we had some of our staff here as well doing that work. But there's a lot of work to do. So we'll come back together in November after we've done our first go-around of the lockdown drills and continue to learn from that and move forward. That's all I have for tonight.
Go ahead.
Do we know how many more teachers we're looking for this year? If we were able to onboard 64, do we know how many more we're looking for?
I don't have an exact number, but a good handful in some places. Specialty positions in particular, teachers in front of students. I want to say we're close, if not. I'm looking at Lisa because she
think we have
tracks
about-
it like that, as well. We've had some recent situations where some people may have accepted another position in our district or even another district. We have the opportunity to hold teachers in place until we find a replacement. Other districts do it as well. We all play in the sandbox. We're close. It was a good hiring season. And I think our principals did a good job in their interviewing, and I think word is spreading. We've got positive things happening. We're just keeping on. So, Lisa, I don't know.
I think we have probably about 6 or 7 classroom positions, and again, they're positions that were vacated internally within the district. And then some of those are very specialized positions, an SLC position or certainly speech-language pathologists. So closer than we have been in years past, and some of the ones that we're still looking for, obviously, the closer we get to September, the more difficult those are to find. So.
Okay, next we come to board reports, board member reports. Michael, do you have anything?
Yeah, this, just a more of a positive statement, not really a report. So school's starting, but, last spring we signed up Erin for the bridge program to middle school. And I didn't really know what it was about. And she spent 8 days for about 4 or 5 hours a day. And it's great. I'd really encourage any other 5th grade parents in the springtime. I think It's been at Memorial for many years, but I think it's gone out to all the other middle schools now. Just a great way to make that transition from elementary to middle. And I just thought that was great. Other parents thought it was great too.
My kids did that and they really enjoyed it. It helped them be ready for middle school.
Yeah.
So it's great that they have that.
Program.
Eric, anything?
No, sir.
Roger?
Nope.
Brad?
Point of
I as
order.
well have nothing. Go ahead.
Point of order, I would like to share my goals. I forgot that. The
Okay,
screen
let's do
reminded
it.
me. Emily and Chris built them today, so we might as well share them.
They are in color. I was kidding you.
So these are the same general areas that we talked about, but what I've done is rendered them into measurable format for you guys. So we can look at the first goal and we'll just talk about what that means by timely. So you guys are going to be looking at the end of this year, whether or not these goals are met. So by June 30th, 2023, GAPS will institute an annual goals and progress review process that will incorporate the strategic plan priorities for all schools as well as annual goals for departments that will incorporate new programs and implementations. So you'll know if we get to June what that looks like, right? It's just pretty clear. The three priorities of the strategic plan, remember, are equitable outcomes, rigorous instruction, social emotional supports. And what we will then see beyond that is that people in the district who lead buildings and departments will also be sharing goals on that. Let's go to number 2. Again, it's timely, right? By June 30th, we will know if we have been able to develop a sustainable budget that is accurate, clear to stakeholders and public, allows long-range forecasting and planning, and reflects district strategic plan priorities, right? So you will know at the end of this year whether we have developed a sustainable budget. Our conversation the other day about Chromebooks, right? Will need to meet the sustainability question. And I know that a couple of you had called me and said, hey, we need to think about that. Case had brought it forward the other day, and we've begun to have some discussions about how many do we need actually, as opposed to just one for everybody. So we'll be looking to make this sustainable. We want to be accurate because we're to build any projections out about whether we balance or not. We will need to have a real clear control of our costs and put those into the plan. Eric had asked the other day at the last meeting about can we see our budget projected out at the end of the year? And Jane had talked a little bit about what that would look like. It's not going to be worth much unless every cell on such a spreadsheet is accurate. So we have work to do to meet this goal in its true meaning. And then finally, by June 30th, 2023, GAPS employees will develop a set of core customer service values or standards, as well as adopted an annual process for feedback and measurement. So in other words, we will seek from other users how we are doing as individuals to meet that customer service standard, right? And so then we'll share that out where we're at, and that will then lend to goal setting next year. So those are the 3. Hopefully it'll be fairly clear as you look at those that we have got somewhere pretty close. Thank you for your time. Appreciate that.
Okay. Next is committee, community, and school presentations. I do not believe we have any. Next is consent agenda. I would just like to say, well, I like how this is presented now. Thank you very much, because it shows us how many teachers we have, how many are leaving, how many are coming. I appreciate that. First up is personnel. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve personnel licensed as presented.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next is personnel classified. Can I hear a motion?
Move to approve as presented.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next is minutes from August 8th, 22, our regular board meeting.
I move to approve minutes from August 8th, 2022, regular board meeting as presented.
I second that.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Old business? I don't believe we have any to,
Well-
go ahead.
Let me, if I may. We've gone through this tonight, I think, pretty well. I know that tomorrow I'll get a question, and that will be, Nyquist, tell me where high academic standards and academic excellence fits in all of those things you said last night. And so, as it relates to our goals, where does that fit?
So I would think rigorous instruction, which is one of the 3 priorities. Generally, I think that Lisa and the directors and the principals will be working towards that. Just thinking a little bit about what we might do to measure. I think probably the very best measure that's reliable, that is comparative, is checking where we are against other districts, and that we have closed that gap a little bit because that gives us comparative data. It becomes really difficult, and I gave a lot of thought, Eric, to like your goal. Teachers, I'll give you an example. A 5th grade teacher who, the kids have mastered the times tables or largely mastered the times tables. When they start their 5th grade year and the teacher gives them a test on the 5th grade standards, they generally don't do very well because they haven't been taught that, right? And so then we can, they can show a lot of gain in terms of, I'm gonna teach the kids fractions, how to multiply fractions, those sort of things. And so kids go from not knowing to knowing, and they get gain through the year on that, what they've learned. And so I think it is looking to improve the percentage of kids that meet on the state test, because that gives us a baseline comparison to the state. And I just don't know one way to do the gain within a given year, because what you're wanting to do is get them back to some norm level and to just test them at the beginning for what they know and then say, hey, they're gonna recover that. They're actually going to learn new stuff that will show improvement anyway. So I would say, Roger, that it will be the work of the principals, the assistant superintendent, those secondary directors, and we will be working on the MTSS measures that you guys have seen, but also looking at the end to see where we are on the state tests compared to other districts.
So if I might follow up. So that's great. When we had a meeting with the School Boards Association came down, I went to that, and we talked about data and who was doing what and how our things are going. And if I remember right at the time, the data we were getting was somewhere between a year and a half old. We weren't getting, as an example, how we're doing as compared to other districts in current year time, which was puzzling to me. The ESD was here and we can get you all these reports, but again, they were trailing so far that it was uncomfortable. Is that really the case, or is there a way for us to know in current year how we're doing as it compares to other districts?
I'm gonna answer, and then Lisa, you can chime in. So we can see our state results. And so one of the things that we have done in the past is you finish the year, you review those as you set goals for the next year. I believe that they are readily available at the end of the year for us, like the state testing results.
From other districts?
You could get the state average, I think. But I don't know that you could go right into them without, because they send that validation data out to you and say, hey, here are your results. I don't know if you could sign up for some other district that immediately.
Okay, thank you.
But there is a state average, and I think we always need to look at how much kids grew in our district and then look at an average, something to index it with that we can compare to see whether or not we've made a move over this year's, our results versus the state average. And we can begin to see if we are moving ahead on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can clarify.
Sure.
So what I was looking for in our governance calendar shows when we are presented data. And so when report cards go out and we have our DIBEL scores, say 30% of third graders are near meets or not meeting reading comprehension. By the end of the year, I'd love that to be 20% of third graders, not 30%. You know, I'd love to see, 10% more meeting standards or exceeding. And then eventually be able to click on that box of third graders and see third graders at Central, third graders at Meadow, and see the data of, okay, something's really working at Meadow really good.
So, and I want to give Lisa credit for this. She's had Emily, back there in the back, wave Emily, start to work on a really cool template for the strategic plan. And I think that we will be getting into the measures and then the targets, which would be by school. And I think we have, obviously it's going to take some time to do that, right? Because we still have to identify measures and stuff. But I think we can end up with a really great product there and then build information systems that are pretty timely to you guys over time. So, and that'll be the progress. But I was really impressed by Emily's work, and Lisa gets credit for giving her the information to do that with. So.
Okay. We're up to J, old business. I don't think we have any.
We just did
Okay, there you go. K, reports. And then down to L, bond and business reports.
So I believe in previous months, we've shown the end-of-month June report. It's still included here just for your review, but I believe Skip's going to be touching on the July end-of-month report.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Chair and Board.
Evening.
Just wanted to give some highlights on the July end-of-month report. Transportation facility, we laid a substantial amount of asphalt in June, so July was preparing for the August version of the asphalt, which will be the remaining asphalt for the project. And it's amazing how much changes to the site when that much asphalt goes down on it. The extension of Lion Street right away has been started, so you'd see that out there today. And then final moves are scheduled for the end of calendar year by the transportation folks themselves. So we're on schedule, and things are looking good on transportation. You'll see we talked about the 2 restroom remodel projects at West Albany High, and they're on track to finish before the beginning of the school year. And then also the 3 classroom projects at North Albany Elementary School, Waverly Elementary School, and then South Shore Elementary School. Those 3 are scheduled to be open for the beginning of school year as well.
So the hurdles on those have been removed?
They've been removed, yes.
Great, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I just appreciate Andy's help in that. I think that was strategic. And then also, in the report, we had just a couple of changes coming. So in this month, there was the addition of what we call the post-contract work section for West Albany High, just to acknowledge the amount of work that continues on at the high school outside of the formal Girding Builders contract. So that's in there. And the 2 restroom remodel projects were part of that. And then also, starting in August, we'll have a regular section for Central Elementary School. So I've heard that a couple times tonight. And so that will be there as well. And then outside of the report, I'll just give a little bit of update since I would anticipate questions on that. We do have contracts getting in place for that work to start, and we have a project kickoff meeting scheduled for this week as well. So we should be getting some things back in another month or 2 from that effort.
And if I could add to that, actually through the leadership of Superintendent Gardner, he has worked with HMK and taken HMK's recommendation to do a deeper dive into some of the more precise cost estimates versus looking at it from a rough order of magnitude perspective. So I think some really smart decisions are going into being financially responsible with this project, and also looking at the best timeline we can possibly meet to serve those kids. So I really have full confidence that it's being done in a very smart way.
So can I add to that, Skip?
Yes,
Just-
sir.
So we're turning the rough costing that you guys took action on, that was 2.8. We are now going to build the plans specifically that will draw the bids. But when we go to bid, we will do HVAC and its associated costs, and then do the other two aspects of the project. Help me with the one.
The ramp heights and also the cafeteria expansion.
Right. Though they will be ad alternates. So we will be able to go to the street, get price before we determine that we will do either of the two additional. But we will get some scale advantage if we do choose to do that. The bids will come in with that scale advantage.
So I would add also to what you've described, we're moving towards the scenario that you're talking about, but we're going partway there so then we can decide on contracting methods, which was one of the questions that had come up recently.
Contracting methods?
Yep.
Okay.
So we're not going all the way to the point where we'll have bids, but we're getting to the point where we can make that decision.
Perfect.
Yep.
And that's design, bid, build, or design, build, bid, build.
So, like, I suppose anybody pursuing a contractor to do facilities on behalf of yourself or someone else, I'm frustrated with the timeline. We committed last May to doing what it took. It's August. I'm sure that we were working on some things and accomplished some things between May and August, but it doesn't feel like we're much further than we were in May. And so I guess that's, I guess, presumptive on my part, and if I'm wrong, I apologize. But, and I think for kids coming into, and families coming into school in September, they only see what they see, and that is that nothing has changed and no schedule to change things. And so how far do we have to get in detail to allow for bids that would allow for bidder design that would be worth anything? Is that, I take it, why we're proceeding the way we are at this point is bidders would look at that and say, who knows? There are too many unknowns for me even to bid this project without more information. Is that the case, and is that the feedback we got to this point?
And Director Nyquist, I think you're spot on. I don't think you're wrong in that at all. I think that some of the things we looked at with targeting a faster project timeline were really due to supply chain shortages, specifically the electrical and mechanical part of things. That was going to make it incredibly challenging to meet this summer deadline for much of anything. But I will say that things to improve the usability of that building are underway. Methods to mitigate proximity to the radiators, for example, in classrooms are underway. We're looking to make those classrooms the best they can be given our current circumstances. But again, you're correct. We're looking at this from a perspective of with rampant cost escalation, which we've seen in other projects, including the modulars that Skip spoke about earlier. We want to be as certain as we possibly can be that we don't go far enough along a process and then find some serious escalations midway through the project that could really hinder our financial sustainability in that. This is an intent to really get a more dialed-in cost, and knowing that the work is going to be available presumably next summer, trying to get these things locked in early.
Thank you. So are we able then will we be able to proceed with a contract that reduces or minimizes our risks? That contractors will tell you, or they tell me, this is a high risk, high reward business. And it seems like you're right. It's high risk to us and many times high reward to them. And so what can we do in that regard? And we're keeping our eye on that.
I'd probably defer to Skip and really in ways that this insulates us a bit, but I think that really fundamentally it's about understanding where the supply chain is going to be for some of the key components where a lot of the costs are going to be, and how, doing the work that we're doing right now from a design perspective should give us a much more refined cost estimate versus the rough order of magnitude value that we made some decisions off of back in May. I don't know, Skip, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, the feasibility study did give us cost per square foot based estimate for the project, which is where the 2.8 million came from. And we strongly felt like it was better to take one step forward to refine the design, where equipment's going and so forth, before we brought a contractor in that would have their best interest potentially in mind versus the district. So we want to hone in the scope and therefore the cost and the timeline. Pick the timeline that works for the district, that minimizes the district's exposure. And that's what this effort will do to get to the point where you're talking about.
So I would hope that you would hope that we have more than one contractor bidding on this.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Superintendent, go ahead.
So, Skip, just want to talk a little bit about the timeline for the planning, the bidding, and then is that enough leave time to have this realistically occur next summer? Because it seems like an HVAC is not going to be done on weekends with the kids in school,
Right.
right?
Right.
So can you talk to me about, or talk to all of us about the time frame for this to occur, to go to bid, to award, and then the leave time for the necessary procurement to take place?
Right. So we're seeing lead times change. They grow, they come back. There was a couple of board meetings ago where I was talking about even a timeline for South Shore Elementary School and the electrical gear, potentially pushing that out. Well, that's been pulled back in again. So things are just moving around. So this effort, we've structured this effort to get the right players in that can bring that to the table. So we're not designing in a vacuum. We're bringing the lead time and the costs in for equipment. And the optimum time to bid design and construction are honestly August and January. So we knew we would not be able to select, design, and have bids ready for August. So we are on track to be ready for January if that's the way we want to go. And so we'll be coming back to the board with those recommendations for next steps.
I know at one point there was a huge time lag on, I know this isn't the correct terminology, but basically the electrical panel was a huge order that was going to take months to order. I guess what we're all concerned about is this is taking longer than we wanted, and we want to make sure we're ordering the parts we need so we can get this done as soon as we can.
Yeah.
What you're telling us is this is going to do that.
It will do that, this next step, absolutely. We could not do that off of the feasibility study, so we didn't want to have the district spend $500,000 on some gear that was just the wrong gear to get.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't know how humanly fast you can get things done, but just moving to January, because that's kind of the general trend, I would push back a little bit and say November. And in my experience, no matter when you put it out, the longer lead time you give people, the better chance you have price-wise and service-wise and all of that. So
Yeah, we exercised that option for South Shore where we saw a long lead for doors, and so we went through an approval process to order the doors before we're at the bid for the rest of the project now, but we ordered the doors beforehand, so we'll be looking for that option as well for Central. We just need to do some design to get there.
Are you asking for when design will be done and when we go to bid?
yes, thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Do you have an idea about that?
We will be coming back in hopefully 2 months with a decision with a better cost estimate for the whole project. And the design will be proceeded enough to where we can order equipment, go do final design if we decided we're going to do a design bid build and hit that January, or maybe we decide to do a design build. And so that time frame may change a little bit. Maybe it's not January anymore. But the next 1 to 2 months will give us that information so we can make all those decisions and pursue all those actions.
Thank you.
Okay.
I had one more question not related to the central.
Yeah.
So we had, and maybe I missed the update, but we had 2 HVAC systems sitting in storage with their warranty expiring. Have we installed those this summer?
Do you recall which 2 schools that was for? I want to say Sunrise perhaps was one.
Sunrise and Waverly possibly?
Did not happen at Sunrise.
We-
Waverly, I'd have to talk to.
We bought them with the intent of self-installation, then we did one, I think Liberty, and realized it was too much for us.
Right.
But, I mean, they're 3 years old now.
I can definitely look into that. It predates me, so I apologize that my
Okay.
memory
Yeah,
isn't
just
isn't
let
sharp
me
on
know.
that, but yeah.
Thanks. Key word of the day is forthwith today.
Eric, where are they in storage? Case, do you know?
That, I'll find out.
Okay, all right.
Thanks.
I have one more. On page 93 of my packet, it indicates the bidding over or under summary, and with the word over being bracketed, it might have taken that we now, with all bond-related projects, we came in 20 million over budget to this point. Am I reading that right? It's on page 1 of 2 of,
Yes, sir, I found the page.
okay,
Yep. I would need to get back to you on that, Director.
okay,
But I can certainly do that.
thank you.
Thanks, Skip.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, new business, M1. Oh, go ahead, Brad.
I had a question. We had a program out at the Lane County Fairgrounds for new bus drivers. How did that go? I didn't hear any feedback on that.
Heather.
That was an exciting event. Many thanks to Emily and Michelle, our communications department, Cindy, the transportation director, Helen, Jack, and Tom, who were bus driver trainers who came out. We actually even had a couple drivers come out just to be there and talk to people if needed. We had 22 individuals come out, drive a bus, and turn in an application for a 3-hour period of time. And then at the end of all of it, Michelle, Emily, and I also got in the bus and got to drive as well, and earned a button that said, "I drove a bus today." It was a good turnout, and people appreciated the opportunity to get a sense. I've always thought of doing it, but I was always nervous, so this just gave them an opportunity. Had an individual who drove buses in LA, the city of LA. Had an individual several who have been truckers themselves, kind of retired, but are thinking, maybe I can do this. And in talking with them, I was like, well, this probably feels like a little bit of a toy kind of to drive. And they're like, well, yeah, it's like you've been driving, long haul trucks and stuff like that. So Cindy and her team are busy going through the applications, bringing some in to do some interviews and looking to see who we want to put through the training process. We already have ideas of how do we do a mid-year kind of pick me up if people change. But Michelle and Emily, I just have to say our communication department got some good information out and met some really nice people from our community who said, I've got time and I've thought about it. Let me throw my hat in the ring.
That sounds excellent. So,
Do you believe we'll meet our bus driver goals as a result?
I think we have potential. I mean, it's just really hard to say. There are some individuals who I'm looking for, I maybe can't do both the morning and an afternoon route, following through of the training and then, driving around the fairgrounds is fun when you get down to it and what it really means with the training and getting on the road and then eventually having kids with you. It's something different. I think we have the good potential to do that, but it's picking the right individuals and bringing them on. It takes a while to train, at least 25 hours. I'm kind of looking at Lisa as a minimum, and some need a little bit more And so between now and when school starts, it'll be tight. But it's looking up.
Nice job, Heather.
I do think that Heather's underselling her efforts on this a bit as well, so I'd like to talk her work up on this. A lot of this is also through her suggestions and proposals under the recruitment and retention grant that we received. So she had some really clever ideas and worked with transportation as well to execute an event like this and an event like stipends to bring on bus drivers. So are we meeting our goals of having every driver that we want? No, but we've made substantial progress towards it, and it's thanks to Heather, transportation, and communications that all worked very hard.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for making that effort.
I have a question. I probably should know this and shouldn't ask it in public, but we're all here. So, last time we were here, you invited me to go out and drive a bus, and
I did.
on my way, I thought about it. I probably could do that. I drive a wheat truck. I can drive a tractor, but and it was all good until you got to the part about adding kids.
The process.
And so I got to see what's going on behind me. So my question is, do we use volunteers on buses to help drivers with the back end of that thing, or?
We have bus attendant positions. We actually hire for bus attendants to assist and drive some of our routes. It is a paid position in the district to assist with students, and if something's happening, kids not feeling well, it's not all about, we've got these unruly kids. It's all about connecting with kids or little kids and, which stop is theirs and helping them so the drivers can focus on the road,
But some of it's, kids are going to be kids.
yes.
So we do that for some routes with some drivers, but
But not all
ours.
routes are in need of that. It depends on the number of students on the bus. We have some buses that are much fuller than others in that sense, so.
Do you have drivers that request help as part of their condition to drive?
As part of their condition to drive, I don't know that we've had,
I'll come to work for you if you get someone else to watch my back
I
here.
haven't heard of that, no.
That didn't
I
happen
think-
until they drive for a day or two.
Yeah, that comes 2 weeks in.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
The other thing that, I really appreciate that it seemed to break the logjam where there are people that are willing but have not taken a step. So at least we have them now engaging in a step. But this spring, we actually did not complete some routes. We could not do the routes because of a lack of people. But up until that, Cindy was juggling the routes and keeping about 50 kids on each bus, which makes that job really hard. And I think if we can get to more normal routes.
It ain't no wheat truck.
The routes are longer and there's more kids, right? So those things both contribute to people asking for another person. So hopefully we can get to a more normal, shorter times on the bus and fewer kids on them.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. M, new business. M1 is board policy, remaining policies / ARs, all sections. The policy committee has met and we've made some recommendations. And any questions on what we have shared through board book? Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the remaining policies, ARs, all sections as presented by the Policy Rewrite Committee.
All second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't think we have any future agenda items. Other business? Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
So moved. Was that to adjourn?
Yeah, I move to adjourn.
I hear a second.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.